Welcome to One Brothas Mind, and I am KD Smooth. Today we will question and challenge popular information and views from a B1 perspective, while we expose the real facts you need. We do this to strengthen your logical, critical, and discerning thinking skills. Because in today's world, hard choices are mandatory and they come with consequences. So you need all the information. And at One Brothas Mind, we do this from a B1 Yeshua the Christ followers perspective. Now, if you're not ready, you better get ready with KD Smooth at One Brothas Mind. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's KD Smooth coming back at you with another report, a new report this evening. Family, there's some things going on that you need to know about. Some things relating to your money, your cheddar, your cheese, your paper, your cash. And we're going to chop it up about these things here today in this report. Before we get started though, family, first off, hopefully, I pray that you all are good. Everything is good for you and your family. You're safe and everything's going good. In addition to that, family, we want to make sure that you smash the likes here on this One Brothas Mind report. Share, and make sure you're subscribed to the One Brothas Mind YouTube channel so that you will get all the alerts and notifications when we go live and upload new content. Okay, family? All right, family. Like I said, this report, we're going to chop it up on what's going on with your money. There's some things going on you may not be aware of. And we are going to chop it up on this. Yeah, family. You got your money up in these banks. And the question is your money safe in these banks? I got something for you to consider. Okay, family? Here at One Brothas Mind, what I've been trying to communicate with everyone is this. Family, get your money out of these banks now. I repeat, get your money. You get your money out of these banks now. It's not safe there. And I know what you're saying. Oh, it's insured. Everything's fine. What you talking about, KD Smooth? I'm getting ready to show you some more evidence. But what you need to understand is this. Globally, not just here in the U.S., but globally, banks and governments are doing greedy things that put the world's financial system at risk of crashing. Okay? This is not new. They've been doing this stuff, but the amount of stuff that they're doing, the types of things that they're doing, and the frequency of the things that they're doing is increasing. And soon, at least one of these things or multiple factors of these things that are happening are going to cause the financial system crash. And when that happens, if you have not gotten your money out of the banks before that happens, your money is going to be froze. Your account's going to be froze. You're not going to have access to your money for God knows how long. Okay? That's the problem. Now, again, with the recommendation here at One Brothas Mind, I recommend that you get between 90 and 95% of all your money out of the banks. Okay? Basically just keep your bill paying and functional money in your account, but your savings and all your other money, get that out of there. Okay? Because it's not safe there because of the risk and threat of the financial crashes. Okay? In addition, I'm not telling you where you should keep your money, but I will say this. You should be keeping your money in some kind of which way with you. You decide how to do that and which way you want to do that, but your money needs to be with you. Not in some other financial institution. No. Don't, all of them are jacked up because they're all playing the same games. They're all connected to the same system. So no matter where you try to store or place your money at, you say, oh, it's safer over here, safer in this way. When it crashes, there's going to be a domino effect throughout all the financial systems. And I'm not saying that there's a global crash. You don't even have that. That's not even required. All that's needed is for a crash to happen, like say in this example, in the US, and you stuck, or in whatever country that you live in and you stuck. Okay? Don't wait till that happens. Okay, family? All right. First, with that being said, I'm going to share with you guys a couple videos. The first video is going to be a reminder, a refresher on, many of you remember the subprime mortgage lending scandal and recession that happened here at approximately 2008 in the US. But we're going to focus here on why it happened, specifically from the perspective of what the banks were doing that caused it to happen. Okay? That's the important part. Okay? Some people explain this out like, oh, it was all the people's fault, the people that signed up and didn't pay their loans. That's not true. It's not true. Okay? So the first video I'm gonna show you guys a refresher on explanation on the subprime mortgage lending to get your mind, get your wheels back going as to how this thing happened. Okay? And then after that video, I got a second video that I'm gonna share with you guys, but I'll go into details about that here in just a moment. So first, let's do our first video that we're gonna share with you. And this is on the bank's role in the subprime mortgage lending scandal and recession of 2008 in the US. Here we go.
During the late 1990s, America was getting a huge flow of foreign funds from Russia and many Asian countries which were beset by financial crisis at the time. American banks naturally did not want that money just lying around earning no interest, so they made it easier to get mortgages as a way to lend out this cash. Americans who would normally not get home loans found it very easy to get the mortgages they needed to buy houses. After all, this was the American dream. Banks made it easier and easier to get a loan, creating adjustable rate mortgages with low early payments and accepting people with low credit scores. These less than ideal loans were called subprime mortgages. Now, what banks usually do as a way to make more money is to bundle thousands of mortgages together as a single bond, known as a CDO, and then to sell these bonds to other parties, like pension funds, insurance companies, or other banks. However, since subprime mortgages were riskier, many of the funds that would normally buy these CDOs could not afford the risk to buy them, unless the banks employed a little bit of financial trickery. You see, if you bought an insurance policy protecting you from the CDO failing, then you could buy it much more freely. And this is where AIG comes in. AIG was at the time the largest insurance company in America, with branches and offices in over 80 different countries. They've been in business since 1919 and have been declared America's largest underwriter for insurance across many industries. In 2008, they had hundreds of billions of dollars in assets, and were in fact well on their way to becoming the first company in the world to achieve a $1 trillion market cap. Here's what this huge company did to transform very risky CDOs into much safer products. In a little office in London, AIG was performing financial alchemy. They were selling insurance on CDOs that had a very poor credit rating, effectively swapping it with the rating of AIG itself, a very solid and highly rated company. This insurance policy was known as a credit default swap, and it literally swapped the bad credit rating of the CDO with the great credit rating of the big insurance company. You were still buying these horribly rated CDO bonds from the banks, but since AIG was willing to pay you off if the bond failed, well then, what was the risk? AIG loved the credit default swap, and so did the fund companies. In the 5 short years after introducing it, that little office in London, known as the Financial Products Division, saw its revenues quadruple to over $3 billion per year. Every time AIG sold another credit default swap, they were making free money in the premiums being paid to them. It was almost too easy. But AIG got greedy. Normally, if an insurance company insures you for $1 million, they should have $1 million in assets around to pay it, just in case. Instead of having the capital, however, AIG were relying on the statistical probability that the housing market would not fall. This strategy worked until it didn't, and in 2007, the housing market crashed. All those subprime mortgages increased their adjustable rates, and thus millions of Americans that should never have had mortgages saw their monthly repayments increase. When those mortgages weren't getting paid, the bonds filled with these mortgages, the CDOs, also started collapsing. But the banks and funds weren't concerned yet, and rightfully so, because they had an insurance policy, these credit default swaps. The banks were relying on AIG to honor their end of the bargain. But when the time came, AIG realized it had insured far too many CDOs to possibly pay up. As soon as AIG's coffers ran dry, all the banks it had insured also started going down. The speed of the collapse was incredible. AIG ran out of money on September 15, 2008, and later that same day, one of America's oldest and largest banks, Lehman Brothers, was forced into bankruptcy. That day served as a wake-up call for the government. Up until then, the Federal Reserve was taking a hardline stance against government buyouts, hoping to teach Wall Street a lesson. AIG, however, was no small insurance agency, and the Fed realized that if AIG failed, the entire world was in trouble. Virtually all banks and insurance companies had stock and policies held with AIG. Everything was too connected. Thus, AIG was deemed too big to fail. And on September 16, 2008, just one day after the US Treasury said there would be no more government bailouts, the government bailed them out. In return for a massive cash loan to pay out these credit default swaps, the Federal Reserve took an 80% equity stake in AIG, allowing the government to change the leadership of the company, which they did. They installed a new CEO, hired at a salary of just $1, who would be in charge of undoing the complex financial maze AIG had created. AIG then used $165 million of bailout money to pay executive bonuses, not for good performance, but for incentives to help undo years of bad financial practice. In total, AIG received a bailout of $182 billion, and in March 2009, they reported the single greatest loss in corporate history. As a result of that announcement, the Dow closed at the lowest level it had been since 1997, and at just 50% of its recorded high in October 2007. AIG also settled a lawsuit brought against them, paying the largest class action settlement of nearly $1 billion to investors who were clearly misled. As a result, AIG reduced its staff to less than half its 2008 numbers just to remain profitable. Interestingly enough, once the dust had settled and AIG's business had stabilized, the government's stake in the business actually became a profitable trade. In 2012, the Federal Reserve sold their shares of AIG to make a $22 billion profit, a truly unprecedented result considering the size of the bailout. It took another 5 years before the government considered AIG safe enough to remove it from the too-big-to-fail list, and ever since, it's been back to the good old boring days of insurance. AIG never caught the same backlash as banks like Lehman Brothers, who were arguably victims in all of this, since they relied on fraudulent insurance. Thus, it is worth remembering just how close AIG got to crashing the entire global economy. And if you want to read more about the inside story...
All right, family. There you go. That's a refresher on the AIG subprime mortgage situation. Okay? So, in that one you saw, they clearly explained it, the hustle that they were running. They were selling bad stuff. They just insured it. And because it was so easy to do and they could make so much money, they insured way more of those bad loan bundles than they actually had money to cover. And when those loan bundles started going bad, people started defaulting on those loans. The economy went into a crash, a recession, I should say. All of a sudden, they were stuck. Banks started to fail, etc. It's a ripple effect, right? So, now that you're caught back up on that, and you remember what went down there, I got a second video here for you. This second video, family, is out of China. There is a banking crisis that has been occurring for the last few weeks, last few months in China. That is on the same scale, if not even bigger. Actually, I would say it's bigger than the subprime mortgage crisis and crash that you just saw, that I just reminded you about here in the U.S. Okay? In a nutshell, basically what's happened, you had property developers that were going to build new buildings of condos and apartments and things of that nature. They took out loans from the banks to build these new properties. Okay? They took out loans to build these new properties. And at the same time, they took these loans out to do that. They also, in China, I guess it's a thing where while a property or building is being built, the property developer will also go ahead and prematurely start to sell the properties to the citizens, to the people, ahead of time, because everybody's looking, to get in. It's kind of they building a new building over here. Let me go ahead and see what the cost is to get me a condo or a home or an apartment here. And I want to go ahead and pay for it. They'll be done building it in so many months. And if I get in now, I'll be sure to have one, as opposed to waiting until the whole project is completely built and then buying into it or investing into it. So you got a spot. They do it early, right? So, y'all hearing it? There's a lot of wiggle room there left within that type of setup for bad things to happen. And what's happened? In China, in 86 cities, Yeah, you heard me right. 86 different cities. Thousands of Chinese people have decided to stop paying or boycott their mortgages. Again, in 86 cities in China, Chinese people, thousands of them, have decided to boycott or stop paying their mortgages. And these are mortgages and things on the properties that I've just previously explained to you that are being built. They're not complete. They're in the process of being built. So when the people stop paying their mortgages, the property developer and the bank that financed all the loans, both, they stop making money. And in many cases, the property developer is counting on that money to use to help actually finish the building project that they had started. Oh, it's all jacked up, y'all. I'm going to show y'all this video. I want y'all to check this out. And then we're going to come back and chop it up off after this video here. Y'all got to see this, y'all. All right, here we go. Let's do this here. Okay? And let's see here. All right, here we go. Check this out, family. Here we go.
In 2008, the global economy crashed. Our world changed forever. In America, Lehman Brothers had collapsed. The bank was holding a giant pile of bad debts, mostly bad housing loans. There was an international banking crisis. It gave the world a recession. 14 years later, another financial crisis is brewing in China, but the world knows very little about it. As we speak, a boycott campaign is underway in at least 86 Chinese cities. Thousands of home buyers have stopped paying their EMIs because they say they've not got their homes, so they will not pay back their loans. China has asked its banks to produce a list of bad debts. There's a growing risk of more defaults. China's property sector is on shaky ground. Banks have a debt pile of more than $9 trillion. The money was lent out to the property sector. First, leading developers defaulted, and now homeowners are willfully defaulting on their loans. Will a collapse of China's property sector start the next global financial crisis? On Gravitas tonight, we'll tell you how China could start a financial pandemic. What you saw happen last week, a protest in China crushed by officials. Who were the protesters? People who had lost their life savings. China's banks are going through a major crisis, and these are people from the Henan province. In the month of April, 4 banks in Henan stopped withdrawals, meaning people who had deposited money in these banks could not withdraw. The people struggled for months. They protested at least thrice, and every time the Chinese state responded with a fierce crackdown. They tried their best to crush the protest, but they failed to silence the protesters. China's banking regulator has now relented. It will compensate these depositors in Henan. It's a massive climb down for the Chinese state and a win for the people. But our story does not end there. In fact, it just begins. The Henan banks are just the beginning of China's nightmare. There are many more hidden skeletons. Chinese banks have debt worth $9.2 trillion. Let me repeat that. Debt worth $9.2 trillion. This money was given out to the distressed property sector of China, mostly to home buyers. But now the money is not coming back because people have not got their homes, so they've stopped paying their EMIs. The scale of the problem is massive. This is a mortgage crisis, a mortgage revolt in China. Home buyers in more than 50 Chinese cities are defaulting on their debts, and they are doing it willingly. We've said this before. China's debt problem is like a cancer, and this cancer is now spreading through their economy. The repercussions could be grave, and the impact could be global. On Gravitas tonight, we'll bring you the full story. We'll tell you how the Chinese economy is staring at a collapse. We'll start with the mortgage boycott. Look at this headline: China mortgage boycott data erased by censors as crisis spreads. This story broke today. And when Chinese censors swing into action, it is often an indication that there is a big problem. These censors took down some documents. What was in the documents? Data about mortgage boycotts in the country, information about the projects that are stalled, images of letters by home buyers. These are the people who declared they will not be paying their EMIs anymore. And China is trying to hide all of this data. So how big is the problem? In one word, massive. We have estimates. Home buyers have stopped mortgage payments in at least 100 projects. Where are these projects? In more than 50 cities. Numbers from the leaked data set suggest that the problem is much bigger. According to one report, the boycott is happening in as many as 86 cities. How many projects? More than 230. How many people have stopped paying EMIs in China? We don't have the exact numbers, but a Chinese news outlet has published a report. It has pictures of the leaked data set. Now look at this. There are more than 80 entries on this list alone. 46,000 home buyers have suspended payments in 14 projects. 46,000. These projects are in central, southern and eastern China. So people are refusing to pay EMIs in 80 cities. You can imagine the scale of the crisis. Why had they suspended payments? Because they've not got their homes, the ones that they bought. The developers have not finished those projects. Most of these projects have failed. And these projects belong to the developers who recently defaulted. The biggest culprit is a name you would recognize, Evergrande. It was the largest property developer in China. Now it has the largest debt pile in the world. 35% of the projects facing a revolt today belong to Evergrande. Home buyers have every right to be angry. If they're not getting their homes, why should they keep paying their EMIs? And all of this is bad news for the Chinese state, because if the boycotts continue, there will be more defaults. How much money are we talking about? At least $58 billion. That's the value of all the loans in delayed housing projects. How will China revive these projects? Its options are limited. China's property sector has become one of its biggest liabilities. Recent defaults have put banks at risk. The actual debt pile is much bigger. Again, I have some numbers. Chinese banks have lent $9.2 trillion to the property sector. And more than half of these are mortgage loans. In the last 1 year, several developers have defaulted. 28 out of China's top 100 developers have either defaulted, have either failed to pay their loans or sought an extension from their creditors. Now, here's why we say that the recovery is going to be tough. In the first half of this year, 2022, property sales plummeted in China by 72% in 1 year. 72% drop. Chinese regulators are pressing the panic button. They've told banks to come clean. China wants to know how big the mortgage debt pile is. There are plans to infuse cash into the economy. Reports say Beijing could pump $1.1 trillion. This money will go into infrastructure projects. It will lift the construction sector and by extension, lift the Chinese economy. At least that's the hope. Chinese regulators say they will help the property sector too, but there's no plan yet. Housing projects going bust, borrowers unable to repay debt, and banks fearing a collapse. We've seen all of this before. This is exactly what happened in the year 2008, the subprime mortgage crisis in America. That's what it was. It gave the world a recession. Going by one estimate, over 2 million homes went through a foreclosure then. How much did American households lose? At least $17 trillion in all. What's happening in China is eerily similar to America's subprime crisis. The bigger problem is the fact that China is trying to hide all of it. The world needs to know about China's bad loans. In 2020, it hid the spread of the Wuhan virus and the world got a pandemic. In 2022, China is hiding another crisis that could give us a financial pandemic. WION is now...
Okay, family. You heard that. Yeah. I keep telling y'all also another side note, family. I keep telling y'all need to make sure you have some good international news sources on your screen. This is one. You're not hearing this report on mainstream media in the U.S. And something like this, you could wake up tomorrow and your bank in the U.S. could be shut down and you can't get your money because of something like this. And you would not have a clue as to why and what's happened and what caused the problem if you don't have good international news sources. Okay, family? All right. That's just real quick. So, yeah. In addition to what she just explained in this report, for those that don't know, couple of additional things. One, and this is the way it is in the U.S., and I believe this is very similar to how banks operate in China also. But in the U.S., when you go get, and say you go sign for a $10,000 loan, okay, just you. Now you owe that bank $10,000. Say it was a car or whatever, right? The day you sign for that loan, you owe $10,000. You don't have $10,000 automatically to pay them back. You got a payment plan over years or a period of time to pay it back, right? But the day you sign that loan for you, now the bank shows your $10,000 on the books, on their books. They don't have the $10,000 cash from you yet, but they show it as money in their account. For lack of the correct term. Okay? And now because it shows as money in their account, even though they don't have the cash from you for it, because it shows as money, a new $10,000 in their account, according to U.S. law, that same bank, your bank, can now make 9 other $10,000 loans to 9 other people. Did you see that? Just off of your one loan, your bank, not having the money from you yet, can still make 9 other individual people or additional individual people $10,000 loans thanks to your loan. So now in total, your bank has loaned out $100,000 to 10 people, which includes you, but your bank has not $1 of that $100,000 actually physically in paper money or gold or silver, whatever currency. They don't have the $100,000 in currency. This is all just on the computer screen. This is all just basically ghost money that they are digitally moving around and making money off of. Okay? Now, in a sense, this works as long as all 10 people, all 10 of y'all make y'all loan payments, y'all monthly payments on time, and ultimately pay your full $10,000 loans off because you are giving them the money back. You're paying it back. And if all 10 people do that, the bank has made money because they're making money off the interest and all kind of other ways they do it. And everything works, right? But what if 8 or 9 of the 10 people that took out $10,000 loans, what if 8 or 9 of them default or for whatever reason, they don't pay those loans back? What happens to that bank? That bank doesn't get or recover the cash money that they were expecting to get, that they've already made plans and other loans out to other people with. They're not getting it back, right? So that puts the banks in a financial crisis. Well, here's how most banks solve that problem. When you take out your $10,000 loan, the first loan that they started all this ghost money with, a part of your payment, your monthly payment to pay that loan back, is an insurance payment, whether they tell you it's included or not. It's an insurance payment. So part of whatever the amount monthly payment you're paying, part of that is paying an insurance policy, just like they did, you saw in the subprime mortgage situation with AIG. The banks, as a part of your loan, they take out an insurance policy on your $10,000 loan. And they include the payment for the insurance policy in with your loan monthly payment. So it's all one payment. And you're paying that every month. So you're paying your loan payment, the interest, and insurance on your loan. You paying that. The bank ain't paying none of that. Right? So if you default for whatever reason on your $10,000 loan, the bank just then turns and submits that to the insurance company, and the insurance company pays the bank the missing or lost money from your loan, because that's what the insurance is for. Okay, that works in theory, as long as you're the only one that defaulted. Only one person defaulted on those 10 loans. But again, what happens if 8 or 9 of the 10 people default on those 10 loans? Now, the insurance company that insured all 10 of those $10,000 loans, now they got to pay that bank nearly $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 in actual money. Again, if it was just one person that defaulted, the insurance is like, no, ain't no problem with that. We got that. But if 80 or 90% or 8 or 9 people default, now that insurance company is on the hook for covering $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 in actual cash. That's different. Do you see the difference? Okay. So you got to understand, this is how banking and loans, I know in the U.S. work, but it's probably very similar in China. Okay. So just like in the subprime mortgage lending problem we had in the U.S., when the banks, when those loans, when thousands and thousands of people started defaulting on those loans, not paying them back, the banks just said, okay, no problem. We turn in these insurance policies with AIG. AIG was like, all right, no problem. We got you. Okay, you got how many today? All right, we got you. And you hit them up tomorrow. We got some more, y'all. We got to turn in. Okay, we got you. Then every day they kept turning in more money, and the amounts got bigger and bigger. And AIG was, the insurance company was like, hold on, wait. You got more? Well, and it was so many defaulted loan policies that were having to be turned into AIG. AIG realized we don't have the cash to cover all these. Even though we are the insurer, we didn't expect all these loans to go bad. This has never happened. So we never, even though we wrote insurance for all these hundreds of thousands of mortgage loans, we didn't expect this many to go bad. Right? So that's the situation in the U.S. as far as what happened. And so the government had to step in and actually give the money or bail out the banks. They had to give the money back to the banks so the banks can continue functioning as normal. Because if they fail, the banks will close or at least temporarily freeze the money of all the people and all the small business accounts that they had because they didn't have the cash on hand to continue to cover all their transactions. Do you understand that? That's why, or at least is one of the reasons why the U.S. government bailed AIG and the rest of the banks out, to prevent the banks from closing and freezing everybody's accounts because they're out of money. Okay? In addition, they did that because if the U.S. government had allowed the banks and AIG to go under because of how big, that's where you get the too big to fail thing. If they allowed them to just go ahead and fail, there would have been an even bigger global ripple effect throughout the global financial system. So they wasn't only just going to jack up the U.S. banking industry, they were going to jack up the world, or at least all of the Western banking systems that operate by the same or similar rules. Okay? Now, with that being said, you got what's going on that I just showed you guys over in China. And if you everything's important to what she said. But toward the end of the video, you saw her say, just like with what happened with the predator, and again, ladies and gentlemen, here at One Brothas Mind, we can't say, that the words or use the words that about this thing that we've been fighting for the last 2+ years here in the U.S. that's killed over a million people and counting. We can't use those words. So we call it the predator here at One Brothas Mind, right? So when the predator broke out, just like she said, over in China, China didn't warn the world. China tried to hide it. And it caused a global predator, right? China is doing the exact same thing with this financial problem in their banking industry in China. Are you following me? So it's so bad, as you saw in the report, the Chinese government, where it's different from the U.S. government, the U.S. government took action and bailed the banks and AIG out to prevent the banks from shutting down and freezing and locking up people's money, their life savings, et cetera, right? The Chinese government has not done that. The Chinese government went ahead and allowed the banks to essentially fail or get to the point where they don't have the actual cash, the liquidity to continue to cover all of the financial transactions of the regular Chinese people and small businesses and what have you. So that's why you see these protests in the video. Okay? That's where you seen that. All right? Because the people are outside waiting on their money. They like, hey man, bruh, can you, where my money? Y'all got my money. It's my money. I worked for it, right? I worked for it. These protests. That's what these signs say. I worked, I made this money, I saved my whole life for it, I put it in the bank, in this bank, pick a bank, okay? And y'all are freezing my money. Y'all can't do that. It's my money. Now keep in mind, in China, the citizenry, they don't have a Second Amendment right in China. They don't have guns, y'all. So other than protesting and verbally screaming and hollering and making a protest, they really don't have a whole lot of options as far as things that they can do to try and respond to, people that took their money. Right? So when they protest, as you saw in the video, the Chinese government sends the police out and beats them up, attacks them, arrests them, and throw them in jail. And they just trying to get their own actual money. Again, the U.S. government took action to bail out the banks, to bail out AIG, to prevent this from happening. In contrast, the Chinese government has allowed, they just let it happen. And the people are out here suffering. They don't have their money. They can't pay their bills because they don't have access to their money, which is causing major problems in every other area throughout their lives. Right? So, yeah. Again, the banks create ghost money and then use ghost money to make more ghost loans in an attempt to make more ghost money. And as long as everybody pays their loans back, the bank in the long run has made money from everybody. Everything's good. But if something causes a large, significant amount of people to not pay their loans back, which in the U.S., we had a recession, the housing market prices crashed, et cetera, they raised interest rates, which raised people's adjustable interest rates on their mortgages, which people's mortgages was doubling and tripling all overnight. And they couldn't afford to pay that. Remember, they were subprime lenders. They barely could afford to pay the monthly payment that their loans started out with. But once the Fed started playing and adjusting the interest rates, it jacked their mortgage payments up, because most of them were being written with adjustable mortgage rates. And that was part of the trick. They would say, oh, the mortgage right now is X percent, so your monthly payment is low. And then they would stop there. They weren't fully explaining to people if and when the interest rates, the Fed raises the interest rates, so too will your monthly mortgage payment increase. And it could double or triple depending on what the Fed raises the interest rates to. Okay. In contrast, here in China, let's talk about why the people are there by choice and not paying their mortgages. It's because the property developers, y'all saw the picture. Let me try to find it here again here. Let me try to find it here. Hold on a second. Let me try to find the picture. The property developers in China that are building the properties, for many different reasons, they are not finishing building the properties. Okay? They're not finishing. Let's see here. These fools. Hold on. Hold on. Let me get it right. Let me get it right. All right, here we go. These fools. These companies building these large properties that are hundreds and thousands worth of homes. This and many others, actually in 86 different cities, that you got the same thing happening, basically. Unfinished, like home buildings that were supposed to be completed by now, they're not. And many of them are just not even going to finish. Now, thousands of Chinese citizens, when they started this project, when the ground first broke, they went and took out mortgages to buy one of these properties, one of these condos or whatever they call them over there in these buildings, so they can make sure they get one. Okay? So they already bought it, and so now they're paying the monthly payment, and they're just waiting for the buildings to be completed. Right? But the property developer, for many different reasons, have stopped building or completing the property. Many of them are not going to be completed. So why should the people continue to pay mortgage payments on a home that they don't have or are never going to get? Right. So the property developer, the reason why they stopped building the project is because of multiple reasons. They ran into money problems. They didn't have enough money. They underestimated, or whatever, which way you want to work it. They didn't have enough money to finish building or completing this building project that they've already sold homes to. Okay? Yeah. So, while it is for slightly different reasons that mortgages are not being paid by the hundreds of thousands, okay, or more, essentially the equivalent has happened and is happening in China. Hundreds of thousands, if not a few million mortgages are not being paid. And the problem is growing. That loss of money that the banks are not collecting are putting the banks in China in a position to where they don't have the liquid cash to continue the daily transactions of all of their regular account holders. You following me? So when they realize that, the banks close and just send you an email or a text message and say, okay, we're closed temporarily. We'll let you know when we open back up, but it ain't gonna be tomorrow. And oh, by the way, we got your money. Your money is safe. Wink, wink. But you can't get it. You can't make no withdrawals. You can't make no transactions. Everything's froze right now until we get this figured out, however long that takes. And this has been going on for months, y'all. Okay, so do you understand that? One additional factor that you have to also understand over in China, it happens all over the world. It happens in the US here, but it's rampant over in China. These same property developers, they're notorious for building properties like you see on your screen as an additional method to make more profit. They will build these properties, even the ones, let's focus on the ones that they actually completed. And the people got their homes. They completed them by using cheaper materials than they're supposed to use. So, for example, if they were supposed to use drywall, regular, what we understand is drywall to build the walls, instead of using drywall, they would basically take some shredded paper and mix some liquid milk / cement stuff paste together, and they would make their own molds that are long and flat and make a little mixture and let it dry. And it would dry solid and actually kind of look flat like a wall. And then they would, instead of using the drywall you can go get at the hardware store, they would use their fake drywalls that were cheaper to make and build people's homes with them over in China. And then, if the stuff lasted long enough for the homeowner to then take possession of their property, and they're like, oh, this is nice, man, this is beautiful. Within a few days or a few weeks, guess what starts to happen? Walls will start falling apart, cracking and being all jacked up. And they're like, hey, what is this? And they trying to get with the developer going, hey, y'all got to fix this. And then all kind of problems after problems after problems after problems. And God forbid if you actually get the wall wet or a pipe that they didn't hook up right in the building springs a leak and it wets everybody's walls. Guess what starts happening? Everybody's walls start melting because it's not real drywall in many cases. This is just one example. So, the Chinese property developers are notorious for doing this. It's like counterfeit buildings, counterfeit homes. Many of y'all already know China and a lot of the Asian countries, they're notorious. They're some of the top counterfeiters of whatever in the world. That's how they get down. And they do homes like this. Yes. In the U.S., we have some home builders that be trying to cut corners and do shady things. And you buy the house and you move in. All of a sudden, you got big cracks running through your walls and all kind of other problems. But in the U.S., you can literally, you contact the builder. They usually come and fix it. And when they fix it, they actually fix the problem right, if it's fixable. Okay? They use the right materials and things of that nature. But then, if the builder in the U.S. doesn't come and fix it right away, then we can actually sue them in court. And they're going to lose because they built the property. So they end up, if it goes to that point, it ends up costing that builder way more money than it would have cost the builder to just go ahead and fix it correctly when you asked them to fix it, when the problem first came about, right? If it's fixable. Because sometimes, as y'all know, you could buy a home here in the U.S., and if the builder did not set the foundation up correctly, the ground that your house is built on, they cut some kind of corner, this kind of shortcut, something with the ground that your house is setting on, and then they built your house on top of it, oftentimes that ground will start to shift and move. And when that happens, it actually starts to cause cracks in your house, in your walls, the ceiling or what have you. And then when they get to looking into everything, it comes to find out they can't fix it, or they fix it and the cracks come right back and they fix it again. It keeps happening. And it comes to you really discover the problem is not your walls. The problem is the shortcuts that they took on the actual ground that they built your house on. So essentially, after a period of time, your whole house is just going to fall because it's built on shaky ground. Okay, those things happen here, but they're not rampant in the U.S. Okay, in China, my God, this is kind of normal business. Okay, way more than the frequency that it happens in the U.S. So home buyers in China are real leery, also just buying homes in general. And then, in addition to buying shaky homes, they end up buying homes in, like what you see on your screen, projects that don't even get completed and finished. They can't move into there. The stuff ain't even done. Their house is not done. So here they are still paying the monthly mortgage. How long you gonna do that? How long you gonna pay on the monthly mortgage that you see the bill? Ain't no workers out there. Ain't no lights. Thus, no, that's not happening. They just stop. You gonna keep paying the mortgage on that? Right. So, it's kind of like a reverse pyramid scheme. The banks and the property developers work out a deal. It's kind of like a trap to create a project, a building project, a home building project. Once they get the ground broke and everything, now the banks and the property developers, they don't have 100% of the money to complete the project. They're expecting to pre-sale homes in this property development and use some of that money to help finance finishing the whole project. Do you see that? It's kind of like in the music industry right now, you got a lot of artists. They'll put out 1 or 2 songs on, say, iTunes or whatever. They got the picture of a whole album that's coming out. But they'll put out 1, maybe 2 songs and hope that those songs get a little viral or go viral. And they can make enough money off of those songs to then pay for the studio time and all the other expenses to finish doing the full album. Do you see what I'm saying? Same game, same hustle for the most part. I mean, I'm really simplifying this, but I'm trying to get y'all to understand what's happening. Okay? So they're doing that with houses. And so when the people in 86 cities in China, hundreds of thousands, if not over 1 million or more people have stopped paying their mortgage, the money is not coming back to the banks. So now the cash money, the banks don't have it. So now they can't cover their other bank account holders' regular everyday transactions that didn't have anything to do with these mortgage loans and this whole debacle. The banks, because their money's not coming back to them, they can't cover their transactions. So the only thing they can do is close, shut down, freeze, send you an email and say you can't make any withdrawals or transactions. Right? The Chinese government has allowed this all to happen, y'all. Yeah. Again, this is what the U.S. government avoided when they bailed out the banks during the subprime scandal here in the U.S. Because that was what was going to happen next. There was about to be a run on the banks if the U.S. didn't bail this problem out. And then within a few hours, if not a couple of days of a run on the banks would all close, just like they have in China. Okay? Just like this. And then U.S. citizens would be out here protesting, banging on the doors and windows, give me my money. The only difference is U.S. citizens would have had their power tools. Because we got power tools and they be, oh, you gonna give me my $500. I ain't much, but that's all I got. And I got to have it now. Right? That's what was about to happen in the U.S. Okay? So, again, remember what the lady said toward the end of the video. Just like China did not report this or has not done anything to correct this problem before it's gotten so large and now threatens the world, just like they did with the Predator, they've done it again with this essentially financial predator. Okay? So, the question is your money safe in your bank here in the U.S.? You go, well, yeah, it's insured, it's safe. This is their banks, right? Most banks, whether it's in the U.S. or wherever you want to go in the world, they are all connected. They all do business with one another. Okay? Some are more connected with, say, U.S. banks than others. But they're all connected. They all are moving money around the world. They're all doing business with each other. So when one group of banks in country A comes up with a problem, it very well, if it's not fixed, is going to have ripple effects in the banking industries of other countries. And in this example, this unaddressed, uncorrected problem that's happened in China has been happening for months. Depending on how connected, say, U.S. banks are with these Chinese banks, how much in bed they are with them, the banks in China, these banks, they're not only able to not cover the transactions of their account holders, but though these banks therefore also can't cover the bills and debts that the bank itself or these banks themselves in China owe every month. They don't have the cash. Why? Because people have stopped paying their mortgage payments by choice over there. Or enough people have. Right? So if the banks themselves are not paying their bills, who does the banks in China owe money to? Or what other banks is the better way to put that? In the world, do the banks in China owe money to? Guarantee a bunch of U.S. banks are in bed with them. U.S. banks where you got your money in an account at. And their money from the Chinese banks, most of these ain't coming in no more, which is going to jack up the money that your bank here in the U.S. has to operate with. Potentially, in the worst case scenario, it could cause your bank to send you an email too. You ready for that? Again, family, get your money out of the banks. 95% of your money, get it out. Because the last thing you want to do or be like is these people on your screen in China. You got to email some kind of notice saying bank is closed. You can't do no transactions. You can't have no access to your money. And don't call us. We'll call you and let you know when this problem is resolved. Days go by, weeks go by, months go by. What you gonna do? Exactly. This is what I'm trying to share with y'all. Okay? And in addition to this, family, if you watch international news and you've been paying attention to a lot of the things that are going on over in China, in addition to what I've just shared with you guys, there are major Chinese corporations that have been banned from the U.S. stock market in the last year or so because of shady financial record practices. Did you know that? Are you paying attention? At the same time, while all this is happening over in China, we got what's going on here in the U.S. and the world, this inflation that's being primarily caused by these jacked up sanctions that the U.S. has put on Russia, that jacked up the whole global supply system, okay, and resource system. You got bank runs in China. You got bank runs in Sri Lanka or whatever. Look at your international news. I beg y'all, look at good international news reports. People going ham all over the world because they're getting jacked by the governments, the banking industry, the inflation, everything. And a lot of it in regards to the issue here with the banks and our subprime situation that happened, it's because there's no real regulation anymore on the banks. They can come up with any scheme, any scam they want to, and pretty much do it. And when it blows up, when it goes bad, just go, oh, well, sorry. Y'all better help us fix it. Give us some money to fix it because we're too big to fail, right? Y'all let us fail. Okay, you're going to jack up the rest of the world too. Right? Again, family, get your money out of these banks. Okay? Of your bank. Get it out. I'm not telling you where to keep your money. Can't do that. But I will say you need to have 95% of your actual money with you. You, not in some other account and with you. Now, how you decide to secure your money with you, that's your choice. It ain't nobody else's business. You do that. But that's, according to today, that's the safest, with all this craziness going on, that's the safest place for your money to be. Okay? Yes, KD Smooth got his paper. The couple of nickels KD Smooth had. Okay? Because we've been having financial crisis after financial crisis after financial crisis in the world. The frequency of them is increasing because the greed and the just criminal things that their banks are doing and getting away with, it's whatever they think of, right? Whatever they think of. So, again, is your money safe in these banks? No. Get your money out. Get your money out before one of these, if it's this one, I'm not saying it's going to be this one. It could be. There's strong indications that it could be this crisis in China that go ahead, because the Chinese government just let stuff happen. And if they ain't worried about their own citizens, the money, the life savings being taken and froze and stuck of their own people, you think they worried about your money being affected, your account in your bank here in the U.S.? Please. Okay? Again, family, smash the like, share this on all your social media. You got to get this word out, y'all. Family, don't come crying KD Smooth when you get that email or that text message from your bank and they say temporarily there's no more transactions. And you keep getting that message for days, weeks, months, and longer. Hey man, KD Smooth been trying to tell y'all, get your money out. Because if you got your money out, when it happens, it's not a matter of if, when, whether it's this crisis or the next one in a different country. When it happens, you got your money. You can continue to function a little bit. You can still pay your bills. You can start just go paying and doing everything in cash because you got your money. Or at least the majority of it, right? You can go to the store and still buy food, or if you need to, or whatever it is you need to get done, you can still get it done. Whereas if you don't have none of your money and they freeze your stuff, lock it up, you in a world of hurt. Right? Now, also one additional recommendation when you get your money out, make sure you get you a few, several, whatever word you want, $100 of small bills. Specifically. Don't get it all in small bills. I mean, I wouldn't get none of it in bills higher than a 20. But you also want to get you some, in ones, fives, and tens, you know what I'm saying? Get you a good amount of those bills that you're keeping. So if and when it happens, you have the ability to reasonably make change and pay for things and the exact amounts or what have you. You ain't just got all 20s and you need $5 worth of this. And now you got to give up a 20 because wherever you buying that from, they're not going to have any cash to give you your change back. Right? So you need to have some small billage as well. Okay? All right, family. Make sure you have an good international news source, if not several of them. Get your money out of these banks before they go bad. Get about 90-95%. Just keep functional money in the bank to do what you need to do, but the rest of your money, get it out. Keep it with you. Decide on how to keep it safely with you and do that. And what else? All right, I forgot. I said it all already, y'all. So, family, y'all let me know what you think on this. What's going on? Did you know about what was happening in China? If you say, well, I don't really care, you better start caring. Just like you didn't care. Look, I did this exact same thing with the Predator. Late fall. It was like October, November. I was watching what was happening over there in China with the Predator. And I started telling people, I was seeing what I was seeing from my sources. I was like, man, if whatever that is gets over here, oh, it's over. It's a wrap. And it wasn't but a few days after I was saying that, I was telling people, I was posting on my social media, just a few days after I said that, China announced that certain cities that were having these major predator problems over there were about to go on quarantine lockdown. I'm talking millions of people. The one city was like 11 million people. We're going on lockdown at pick a time, say 8 p.m. tonight. And it's like 12 o'clock in the afternoon, like noon. The Chinese government made the announcement. And when they said at 8 o'clock tonight, and here it is noon, that's when I went and got my mask, the rest of my mask and everything else, because I knew what was about to happen. Everybody in China, whether they had the Predator or not, that could afford to get a plane, train, boat, car, camel, donkey, a rat to ride on, a dog, I don't care. They was going to find a way to get out of that city in China before the lockdown went into place, because they understood how bad it was going to be, and there was no telling how long it was going to last. So you had millions of Chinese people, with and without the Predator, immediately leave China and Chinese cities in one day, then a few hours, and they went everywhere. Yeah, that's how the Predator, a big part of how it spread globally. Okay, family? So here we got this financial predator over there going on right now, and mainstream media here in the U.S. ain't really telling y'all about it, or not giving you the full story like we have here at One Brothas Mind. And it could be coming here in regards to the ripple effects on the banks here, depending on how connected or how in bed they are in business with the banks in China. Okay? These ones that have closed, so-called temporarily. So, family, let me know what y'all think on this in the comments. Katie Smooth, I'm doing everything I can, man, to try to hip y'all to some game. Ooh. You know, and here's the worst case scenario. Let me say this too. Let's say you're thinking, man, I'm going to go get my money. But if I do that, one, my money ain't making no money in the bank. Hello? Your money already ain't making no money in the bank. The days of getting dividends and interest paid back into having your accounts, your savings accounts, whatever in the bank, them days been over. So your money's just sitting in there for the most part, if it's in there. Unless you got it in a specific type of IRA or some kind of investment account where they're using your money to actually invest in the stock market. But that's a whole different other topic. But other than that, checking account, savings account, your money ain't making no money. Okay, so there's really no reason for it to be in there. Your money is in there. They're using your money to make money for them, not for you in that situation. Okay? Second, if you go in, you take most of your money out, you go, all right, I got my money now. What? Now what? Okay, keep it, hold it, and watch for a while. Pick a time, pick 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2-3 years, whatever. Pick a time. Just watch. And in that period of time that you pick, that you selected, if the banks don't crash, they don't close, everything seems to continue, especially here in the U.S. where we are. Everything seems to keep moving along and there's no new threats financially. Guess what you can do? You can turn around and go deposit your money right back into your bank account. No harm, no foul. It's not going to cost you anything. But if you go take your money out and in 3 months, 6 months, a year or whatever, there is a financial crash, you're going to thank the stars that you actually listen to KD Smooth here at One Brothas Mind and others that are telling y'all, go get your money out of these banks now. Okay? But don't just listen to my words. Do your own research. Research what's going over in China. Research the subprime mortgage crisis that happened here, and educate yourself as to the games that these banks are playing, so you can confidently make the decision to get your money out of these banks. Okay, family? Again, smash the like, share, and make sure you're subscribed to One Brothas Mind, because here we give you the facts and information you need. Let's chop it up in the comments on me. Let me know how y'all feel about this information and this story. Y'all got some other solutions? Hey, drop them in the comments. That's what we're about here at One Brothas Mind. Okay? And this concludes this broadcast for One Brothas Mind. We thank you for joining us. And as a part of the new Black media, B1 choices are mandatory and being on code is required. But never fear. Yeshua the Christ is with you always. Shalom.